Hello and welcome to the Berserk Gods from the Machine Master Mode Talkthrough videos. My name is Twinny and in this video we will go over Tyth. Tyth is a very special boss which makes him my favorite boss out of all 31 Master Mode bosses. He is the only boss that is not 95% or more of the time predictable, which makes this video not worthy to be called guide, because you would need to cover so much that it would probably be 2 hours long. So instead I will give you my perspective on the boss and what process we use to get functioning tactics. I will go over the changes and tell you how to deal with certain mechanics. So let's start. The fight begins with two magma droids spawning. You can deal with them in any way you want, they're just there so you can't burn down the boss. Pulling one in the middle while your DPS kill the other is a totally valid option, for example. We tried to position Tyth in the middle because there's a very important change from hard mode to master mode that you will soon see. The inversion starts casting and you will see what I'm talking about. In master mode, the first wave of adds and the wave after the boss reaches 65% life consist of 8 adds. Each of them is doubled, so 2 Grace, 2 Lands, 2 Justice, 2 Guardians. We deal with them pretty easily by letting one tank cleave down one Justice immediately, and the other tank picks up the 2 Guardians and moves them to a Grace add. There we bomb those and kill the lands next to it as well. Meanwhile, we have 1 DPS assigned to the second Grace add for interrupts and to kill it after it casted its shield. The healers will probably get aggro from the second lance, and we try to aim it immediately onto the remaining Justice and kill that as well. That is the next change from hard mode. You can't just stun the Justice add to remove the reflect shield, instead you have to aim a lance onto it to remove it. That is the reason why you always keep one lance alive. It is possible that the next wave has Justice adds but no lance adds. So you need it from the previous wave. Let's look at the execution. You see I let myself getting pulled through the boss. You always need to stand outside of the circle as the non-active tank to be able to pick up Tyth after the inversion, same as in hard mode. So I cleave down the Justice and you can look at everyone doing their job. DPS on Grace duty to the right and the rest of the DPS AoEing at the other Grace, while the healers try to aim the lance onto the remaining Justice. We dealt with that wave pretty nicely, and now you can see the first exploit we're using, which I'm not particularly proud of, but whatever. The boss always casts 3 energy waves in between inversions. The third energy wave you can always force cloak as an assassin tank. When you do that, you interrupt the energy wave and Tyth starts casting inversion immediately, which is an obvious abuse of game mechanics, so by definition an exploit. But luckily I stopped caring about stuff like that 4 to 5 years ago. Second wave is spawning now. We have 1 lance and 3 guardians. Picking up the guardians and pull them to the old lance. As I said, you always want to have 1 lance remaining on the field. So for example, the second wave could have consisted of 2 justices and 2 guardians, and if that happens you need the lance from the previous wave, but you should always mark the old lance to know which one to kill first. Third wave will come soon, yes. 1 justice, 2 guardians and 1 grace add. It's the same as in hard mode. The third wave always has a grace add, and every second wave afterwards as well. It depends a little bit on when you reach the 65%, because remember, the wave after the boss reaches 65% is the 8 add wave. But we do the same thing as before. First lance casts is controlled by the healers, and afterwards the tank picks it up. Now you just saw 2 things that are different from hard mode. The boss had a very large cleave, 180-degree cleave. This happens when the boss has more than 5 stacks in master mode, so 6 and more. The other thing is that wherever you tank Tyth, there could be adds spawning. So that's why I moved the boss here, So the other tank has an easier job picking up the Guardians, and I don't cleave ads by accident. So we're just pulling them away. I mass taunt, of course, to get them. I pull the Guardians to a lance. Here's the little mistake of what I did, because the boss reached 65%. So the next wave is the 8 ad wave, and you want to kill every ad there is before that. So I could have just left the Guardians at the first lance and then killed the second one, but you know, it's a little minor thing. Again, what we are doing here in the 8 ad wave depends a little bit on the stacks. If you have too high stacks, you could let both Graces actually cast their shield. This happens when you don't destack properly. It happens a lot that the boss is destacking himself, right? You see the white buff on my target frame right now. When that buff runs through, the boss loses 1 stack, but it gets refreshed every time an ad dies. So sometimes you get 2 stacks instead of 1, basically, by adding a stack a second or even sometimes half a second before the boss would lose a stack by itself, you know. So that's what happened here. We did it a little bit poorly. That's why both Greys actually cast their shield. And again, there are ads spawning inside of the boss, so I have to move it, unfortunately for some of our DPS who get cleaved here. But you know, you have to do it, there's no other way. We just wait now to clear the remaining ads, and if once we get to a point where all ads are dead, this boss is pretty much over. We just we lose a DPS here, but you know, it happens, whatever. You know, what shouldn't happen though is what happened here, and you should learn from that, is we killed a lance too early, right? There was a lance ad remaining, but we AoE'd it, and therefore the Justice is still alive. If we would have been unlucky, there would be no lance in this wave, right? That could have happened, and then this would have been probably a wipe. But we're lucky, there's a lance ad, and I pick up the Guardian again. And just remember, as a tank, you always want to pick up the Guardians immediately next to the boss. And the healers don't really do a good job here right now to aim the lance through the Justice, so I pick it up and aim it through 2 Justices and then through the 3rd one as well. And I just hope that that's enough to kill all of them. Again, Guardian spawning inside of the boss, so you need to move the boss. There's no other way. Just have to do it. And we reach burn phase pretty quickly now. And burn phase starts at 25%, and you want as little stacks as possible. Okay. And spoiler alert, we don't do a very good job at that, but it still works. So it's the same thing now, right? There are no 8 ads anymore. And another cool thing is that you see here is 3 Guardians in front of the boss, and what does the other tank do? Correct, he moves away. And you can go straight through the middle, no questions asked if there are no ads, right? So that's what's happening here. Our tank moves through the middle. I have time to pick up the Guardians, and we don't bomb them because the boss is destacking right now. So you always want to have 1 DPS kind of thinking about, you know, when do we want to bomb? What's the best time to bomb? And once the call comes to bomb, of course everyone, you know, tries to AoE them down as quickly as possible, and then there's the next wave spawning. We have a Grace, and you don't have to do that, but it's very beneficial to go into burn after you had a Grace wave, because first of all, there's no Grace in the next wave, so you can focus on the boss, and second of all, you reduce the stacks of the boss by a large amount. Still, we did a very poor job of controlling the ads back then, and we end up with 5 stacks once the burn hits, right? 4, I believe it was 5. Yeah, we have 5 stacks now, 25%. burn phase begins. Again, you force cloak out of the third energy wave, as always, taunt the boss again. And now it's just your job as an off tank to pick everything up to make it easier for the other tank to control Tyth. You try to root the justices, you try to stun the lances, you do everything you can to reduce the DTPS of the group so the healers can put out a little bit damage as well. And again, a guardian next to the boss, so of course that's the first thing I pick up. Immediately you want to help your tank buddy out. It's very important that you see yourself as part of a team as the tanks here, because you really need to work together. If one of you fucks up, the other one can't compensate for that. So what happened now is rage overload. Rage overload happens because we went into the burn phase with too many stacks. It happens when the boss reaches 10 stacks. So as I said, not very well done, but you have med pack, you have deflection as a tank to just make sure that you survive the hits afterwards. And that is Tyth. As I said, think about Tyth as a very overview heavy fight, right? And you always have to think about functioning tactics for your group. It doesn't help you if 10 people tell you something that doesn't work for your group because of your setup or because of your mindset or whatever. Think about who are your strong players, and you can always put more pressure onto them and helping the worst players. If you, for example, have bad healers but very good DPS and very good tanks, you can always let one DPS do the lands instead of the healers who are already busy healing the fight. So think about what your group consists of, think about your strengths, and that is the beauty of this boss, that there are a million different tactics, and everyone who will comment on this or whatever will tell me that I'm wrong and this is the worst tactic they have ever seen, but it still works because this boss is so diverse. And I like him a lot, and I hope you do too. And until we see each other again at Ivela and Esne, have a nice day.